Hey guys, welcome back to Car Academy. In this series of video, we are looking into Rust programming. In the last video, I covered why whiteouts are just developers to avoid C and C++ programming and start using memory safe programming languages like Rust. I've also covered the features of Rust programming and the applications of Rust programming. In this video, I'm going to cover variables and mutability. So let's dive into the programming. So as a quick recap, I explained two different methods of developing Rust programs and projects. The easiest way is basically using something like the Rust C command, but that's not the preferred way if you're developing a big Rust project. The other way is basically creating the project using cargo new and then building the project using cargo build. You can also run the program using cargo run. Okay, so this is basically I'm running the same program that we developed in the last video, hello world program. So when we run the Rust program or a Rust project using cargo run, this is what you get, this is where you get the output. So we created a hello world program in the last video and I just ran that. Now let's go and create a new project for understanding the variables. So for that, let me first clear the screen. So in order to create a new project, you have to use cargo new and then I'm giving the project name variables. So when you give the when you run the cargo new variables, this is what you see, variables. This is basically a directory. You can go into this directory and then when you run this tree command, you can see there's a cargo.toml file which contains details about what are the libraries that we use and things like that, which we'll cover in the later part of the series of videos. And there is something called source main.rs. So this is basically the Rust file. Let's take a look at what is actually there in this file. This is nothing but the hello world again. Now let's go and modify this. Okay, so let's first change this comment from hello world to learn variables. Okay, so in order to build this project, cargo build and then cargo run. Okay, so you see learn variables. Now let's go and so we can define a variable something like this. You have to use let var is equal to 100. Okay, so this means that I'm actually storing a value 100 into a variable named var, and the way to declare that or define that variable is by first let, then variable name, then the value. Okay, so if you want to print this value, now we can print like this. This is one way. The other way is basically we can say, you can just give this curly brackets and then you can give this variable name here outside the double quotes. Now let's go and build this program, cargo build, and to run this program, cargo run. Okay, so if you don't have any errors in your program, you should see no errors, no warnings in the cargo build. In the cargo run, you basically get the output here, learn variables. So here we print var 100, var 100. Okay, so now what happens is, let's go and change this value, var is equal to 102. Now let's go and see print ln var. Okay, so we'll see what happens now. Now let's go and build the project using cargo build. You can see that var is equal to 102 it throws out an error saying that cannot assign twice to immutable variable. What this means is immutable means that this variable value cannot be changed after assigning the value for the first time using this let statement. So in order to change the value of this variable, it's also giving us a tips or a help. So it says consider making this binding mutable. So it's basically saying that add a mute here. Mute means here mutable. Now let's go and change this. So if you have to change the value of the variable, you have to define the variable using this mute. So now you go and build this project using cargo build and run the project. Now you can see twice it printed value 100 and the third time it printed the value 102. So if you have to change the value of variable, we have to define the variable using mute, M-U-T. Okay. So by default, all variables declared in Rust without MUT are actually like constants. You cannot change that value after defining it. So if you have to change the value of the variable, you have to define using MUT. Okay, now let's go and see how to declare a constant. Since we have seen constant variable, now let's really see how to define a constant. So a way to define a constant, you don't have to specify let here. You can just say const. Now a const, let's just define const as pi, and here I'm just saying it's a constant of float 32 type, and I'm just storing 3.14. Now let's see. Okay, let's print this. So all constants by default are defined using like upper letters. Let's go and build this project. Cargo run. Now you can see pi is 3.14 here. So a constant can be defined. Let's go and take a look at the program again. A constant can be declared like this, const, and then this is a constant name, and you have to tell what type of constant is this. This is a F32, which means that it's a float type 32. We'll take a look at the data types in the next video. For now, just remember that whenever you declare a variable or a constant, you can always say what type of variable it is. Now, there's one other concept I wanted to tell here is basically this concept is called shadowing. What this means is I'm just assigning this variable. Let's not also mute it. So here you can see where inside block where. Okay. So understand that here where outside. So see here, this is most important one. So I'm defining the where again. What happens here is this where actually shadows this where. Okay, what this means is within this block, whenever you use where, the value is 200, and when you go out of this block, which is basically we call this as a scope. Okay, so within this scope, the value of this where is 200, but even though we assign 200 to this variable named where, when we come out of this block, the value of the where becomes 102 again, which is basically the value that we store here. Let's go and build this. Let's go and build this project. Cargo build, run this project, cargo run. So you can see here where inside block is 200, and when we come out of that block, the value is back to 102, which we have seen here. Okay, so this is important. Keep a note of it. And this one other thing I wanted to say here, when you talk about shadowing, so Okay, we can actually define it here. We can also define multiple times. Now I can define var is equal to 500. Do you think this is possible? Do you think this will work? This will work because variable var is not mute. It's not a mutable variable. This is like a constant, and for those variables we can define the variable again using the let keyword. Okay, build the project, run the project. You can see here var inside block first time 200, and we defined var again with 500 value. It works fine, builds fine without any issues. So that's the important thing you need to remove. But this is again part of the shadowing. What happens here is we first define var with 200, and when we define var with 500 again, it shadows the previous var, and there is no way to get back that value again. It's basically overwritten. Okay, so that's the important thing in the variables. You have to understand that if you have to change the value of the variable after defining it, you have to define using the mute. Okay, so that's the important thing. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel, share it with your friends. I will come back with yet another topic on Rust programming in the next video. Thank you guys.